following show is for entertainment purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of Empire Media LLC, its subsidiaries, affiliates, sponsors, and advertisers.
Can they hear me? They hear me live out there. Next beat. That ain't the beat I wanted to.
Those was wood
another
beats
beat.
right
Another
there.
beat. Nope. Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope. That's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up. Oh, word. Turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can't make it louder than my headphones. Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, natty ghosts, Velas, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working a hustling to get it, or get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college park to bank out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Von's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what.
Welcome, everybody, to the Empire Media Zone XCast, episode number 42K. This is our Deep Issues episode. And although the search for Tim Shovelday was almost halted this week, it was not completed, as we have not yet got him on the show. It's still day 4,759 in the search for Tim Shovelday. But he was spotted. He was spotted in Detroit. Did you guys see it? You guys see Tim?
Yup, I sure did.
He was there at the closing of the Joe Louis Arena, although we could not make direct contact. It was just a close encounter of the second kind of Tim to the Timmy Shovelday. Of the 30-second kind. Yeah, good one. Good one, son. Good one. But that is not what we were here to talk about today. We could talk about Tim Shovelday for an hour, but we're not gonna. Not tonight, anyway. We'll save that for later. Tonight is our Deep Issue show, and our topic is the moon landing conspiracy. I'm your host, Josh Houslander. We got our producer, Adam, and co-host, Ed Zaharsky, here with us, as usual, for our Deep Issues cast. What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Right on. You guys ready to talk some moon landing?
Let's get into it.
All right.
I think get up to it.
Get up to or maybe not up to it, because maybe it never happened.
It never happened.
Maybe we never did get there. As we all know, we as Americans, the United States of America, we went to the moon in 1969. Apollo 11, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Apollo 11. And we've gone back a couple times since then.
6 total.
As well. 6 total. Good call, Ed. And then, of course, there were our failures with, Apollo 12, Apollo 13, and, these things. But there are people out there who believe that this never actually happened. For one reason or the other. Or we should at least say, maybe we won't go too deep right then. But there are people that believe that it did not happen that way. That is not how it played out directly. Was, what they told us originally. So what is it? You guys think this conspiracy has any legs? Before we get really into it, what do you guys exactly think about this? I got a lot of stuff that I want to touch on, but before we really get into it, is this one of the conspiracies that you guys just kind of, when you hear it, you instantly think BS, or is this something you think maybe has some weight to it?
I will say this, that there is, the evidence that they give you, that the conspiracy theorists give you regarding this, it is there are pieces that make you go and say, hey, you know what, that's a good point, or yes, where is this, or why is that like that, and why is this doing this? There are some real things that make you ask yourself some questions about it. But I'll save what I ultimately think for the end.
I might be in the minority here, but I don't think it happened. I think it is a hoax. Not that I'm like too deep into this conspiracy, but I feel like it fits the narrative. If for no other reason, one of the reasons why I don't believe it is NASA is completely 100% a government organization. I mean, look at how much your government has lied to you in your lifetime.
That which is a fact, an absolute fact.
Why would you believe this but not everything else?
No, that's a good point, because basically, in essence, what you're saying is when even if what you're being told makes sense, if A, B, C, D, E, and F are true, why would you assume that G are false? Then why would you assume that G is true?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's at this point, when you've been lied to so much, it makes more sense that it wouldn't be true than it would.
Yeah, and I think people have this kind of picture of NASA in their heads of all these just really smart, good-natured scientists who just want to advance humanity, and they're just some really smart nerds who really love what they do, or something like along those lines. And so we should trust them when it's just more government propaganda. And I'm not even saying that going to outer space is completely impossible, and that none of these things could happen. I'm saying what has been presented basically did not happen.
Okay. And hey, that makes sense. We're going to get into it deep. And actually, it's funny, too. We said this off air, right before the show started, that we call this the Deep Issues Cast every second and fifth Tuesday of the month. But truthfully, this isn't the deepest one we've ever done. This isn't like an existential thing. This isn't a philosophical thing necessarily. We cover a lot of conspiracies. We love conspiracies here, and we love busting them open and talking about them a lot on the Deep Issues Cast. But when we did time travel last month, we got very deep in that. When we've talked about other ones, we talked about multiverses and simulation theory. It got very deep. Of Deep Issues Casts, and I'm not trying to downplay this one, but of Deep Issues Casts, I don't feel like this is very deep. It's an issue. It's definitely an issue, but I don't know that there's that much depth to it, because I feel like it's kind of cut and dry. It's, it either happened, it's either an enormous hoax that people are lying about big time, or it wasn't. And kind of like going off Ed's theory a little bit, or Ed's idea, not theory so much, but Ed's idea that if there's anything, if you've been presented anything with this that you can point at and say, well, that's not true, that doesn't make sense, or that just simply doesn't add up, then if you look at that one thing and think that, then why would you assume that if they told that lie, that the rest of it's true? And so I do buy into that. I actually do tend to agree with you when it comes to that major point. This is one too that I admit, I'm an American, I'm a patriot. I don't want to believe that this is fake. I don't. And also, I love the idea of exploration. I love the idea of going to space. I definitely don't want to think that it's impossible to go into space. Because there is a part of it too where you have to say, and if this isn't true, I would, anyone could jump in and say that, no, they don't believe that. But if you believe that the 69 moon landing was fake, or that we've never been to the moon, then you kind of, do you believe that every Mars rover didn't happen? Do you believe do you believe all those different things? Do you believe that we truly have then never gone to space? Are the satellites not really there?
No, the satellites are definitely there. You can even see the International Space Station from Earth. So, and things in low Earth orbit, they very obviously exist.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Satellites, the space station.
So you are definitely refuting, and it's okay. You are definitely refuting what I just said. The idea that just because you believe that the Apollo missions didn't land on the moon, that doesn't necessarily mean that you believe that there's never been anything that's gone into space.
Correct.
Okay. No, that is good. That's a good thing to just point out, because there are some people that believe that, but there's some people that just truly believe that nothing is what it seems at all.
Well, and usually, as you mentioned, we'll probably get into this later, you kind of head down a different path.
Sure.
In that way, but
because we are going to kind of break this down into kind of three separate areas here, but we'll try to stay on topic now. But yeah, you're right, Ed. Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about this, I said, I'm not necessarily a believer in the moon landing theory. That doesn't mean that we're not gonna really air the conspiracies, air what the conspiracists think here. But one thing I've never quite understood with NASA, with the government, with Ed kind of said, these top minds hanging out in this room, if the conspiracy theory is bunk, if it's stupid, if it's just somebody trying to just be a hater or to just go out there and talk about, to just cause a controversy, where is like the definitive NASA proof? Where is the NASA publicist standing next to the brilliant scientist telling us exactly why this conspiracy is crap? Because if the science was there in 1969, then they should easily be able to rent a half an hour at a time on paid programming and say, listen, 20% of Americans and more than that, according to some studies, up to 20% of Americans and more than that in the rest of the world believe that the moon landing is a hoax. This is what they say. I actually kind of have trouble with those numbers, which we can talk about later, because 1 out of 5 people I know don't think that. But that's fine. That's fine. 20% of Americans.
Well, you can understand why outside of the country it would be that way. Because
Sure, they don't
Americans
believe
hate it
anything.
everywhere,
Yeah, they don't believe
we've
us.
lied so many times.
Right? Yeah, they just don't believe it.
What's the point though?
But and that's my thing, is that if 20% of Americans and more around the world think this, then where is the really smart scientist and the great NASA publicist saying, listen, here's what they think, and this is why they're wrong.
Why did
Break it down, debunk it.
Yeah, but there's not really any point to doing that though.
No, you know what? Nick, who we miss on this show, who you spam a lot, says the same thing as you, Adam. He does. He makes that same point when I've made these points in private. But why? I mean, if 20% of the people said, 20% of the people you knew, 20% of the people in America were saying, Adam Hernandez is a liar. Nothing he says is true. He's a terrible person, and he beats his wife, or something heinous, something really heinous. Wouldn't you feel the need to come out and say, "Hey, no, I don't. That's not true. I'm not a liar. I'm a good person." Wouldn't you feel the need to come out and say that? Because I would.
If it happened, look, if we're talking about something happening within the last couple of years, but I mean, the last moon landing, happened in 1972? I think that's what it was.
Yep. Well, last manned mission.
Last manned mission. Yes.
Right.
Again, I think there's other things that people are worrying about right now. Yes, I think, Ed, you're somebody that doesn't believe in the moon landing. Is that at the top of your mind each and every day? Do you wake up thinking of, man, you know what? I really wish the government would come out and just admit today that the moon landing was fake.
What else has NASA done in the last 30 years? It'd be nice if they did that. I mean, they could do something.
But again, there's
Taking a lot of money.
There's just no point in doing it. There's other things right now that people are worried about in this country than whether or not the moon landing was.
But that is NASA's job, is it not? I mean, and NASA does have publicists. They do have scientists. So I don't see why.
I even think within their own field though, there's other things that they're doing that they're worrying about. Not something that happened back in the.
They could do both. They could do both.
Climate change.
Yeah, climate change. That's huge. That's huge in space.
That's a good point. That's something that they're currently trying to convince the naysayers about today. Is climate change.
I think
and that's something that people are. What are you more concerned about right now? The hoax, the supposed hoax of climate change, Ed, or are you more concerned with a fake moon landing?
I think the hoax of climate change is actually a bigger deal at the current
or
moment.
the supposed hoax of climate change.
Adam, I agree with that, but just because you believe in one thing doesn't mean that you can't still care about another thing. So,
I'm not saying I'm not saying you can't care about it. I'm just saying that it's not as important as it was. Look, if there was a big hoax, or if somebody was claiming hoax, if there was 20% of the population claiming hoax in 1972 or 1969, then that's when NASA
They-
would have to come out and say, hey, you know what? This, and this is why this is not a hoax.
They don't need to come out though, because basically anybody who is a dissenter has been labeled conspiracy theorist. Just like there's a parallel, like with climate change, they've been labeled denialist. So you have this derogatory term attached to you, and nobody wants to be part of that crowd. 97% of scientists agree that climate change is a thing. Even within their own community, it's basically career suicide for any scientist to come out and say, hey, I think we're doing some things wrong, or I haven't reached this conclusion. And there are people that have come out, and it's career death for them. So why would they need to go out and basically say, hey, we're going to disprove all these conspiracy theorists, because the work's done for them? So many people buy into this that plenty of people will do their own work.
No, it's good points, guys. Good. Originally, when I was saying, when we were gonna like break this down into 3 areas, I wanted to try to break down the show into a couple of 20-minute segments in this. But as we're beginning the discussion, we haven't even got that deep into it yet. I feel like that's not gonna be doable. So if it's all right with you guys, I'm gonna lay down the 3 areas that I put in,
Go
earlier.
ahead.
But basically, we're kind of, so far, we're touching on the, we never went to the moon. It didn't happen. The Apollo mission didn't happen. We've been lied to by NASA. They wanted us to think that we had the capability of going to the moon, yet we didn't then. Maybe we do now, maybe we don't, and maybe it's impossible. Who knows? The other one is the William Cooper angle. We always seem to, mention William Cooper's name, when we talk about these conspiracy theorists a little bit. But the William Cooper angle is that when we landed on the moon, supposedly in 1969, that we already had an advanced moon base, and we already had smaller bases on places like Mars. We already had made contact with aliens in the Eisenhower administration, and or even in the Truman administration before that. So that's why they made that cover up, so we would kind of get on board with the idea that space was possible. But we were already there. They had already been lying to us about what they had accomplished. So that's there's basically A, we accomplished less, B, we accomplished much more, and then C, and it could be argued that this would be a totally different deep issues cast, but it probably won't be. Maybe it will in the future. But that's the flat Earth angle. It seems that the flat Earth idea is more criticized now than it maybe ever has been. Yet, more people actually believe in flat Earth now than they did 75 years ago. The flat Earth idea is it's huge. It's all over the place. And the idea of the flat Earth thing is that, there's no space to go into, or it's not quite like that. You wouldn't break through a curvature. It's a totally different angle. And I'm not a flat Earth expert. I'm not a flat Earth believer either. But that's the idea that they're hiding,
because you're saying that's. But go ahead.
But that is the flat Earth idea, though, that because the Earth is flat, this whole the whole lie is perpetrated around the Earth being flat, and the going into space is just another thing added onto it. That's part of the the conspiracy that's happened.
Well, to address the flat Earth part, I think the reason why you're seeing that become a more prevalent, and even sometimes there's popular people who are coming out saying, hey, I'm a flat earther, and it's becoming more and more popular, is because when you start looking at a lot of the moon landing stuff, you can start to piece things together and say, hey, that doesn't quite make sense like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not unheard of to eventually reach the conclusion of NASA lied to me. Like, oh man, what it kind of
what else are we being lied to about?
Yeah, and it creates this cognitive dissonance, and that makes a vacuum. Like, you got to believe something, and in lieu of another alternate theory, a lot of times people, I think, latch on to the flat Earth theory, and they can make maybe some convincing arguments. You watch a few, like you're saying, a few YouTube videos, and it's like, oh wow, and I'm kind of convinced of that. And while I personally do not believe in the flat Earth, I can see how somebody could lead that way. Like maybe
Well, there's
you know,
fascinating videos on it too. I don't believe in it either, but you're,
Yeah,
you're right.
it's like somebody maybe having a strong Christian background and something bad happens to them and they curse God and become a staunch atheist where they kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point, Ed, and I think the true science behind the flat Earth is basically, of course, the Earth is flat. How else would it fit on the turtle's back? Everyone's seen that meme, right, Adam?
Which one was that?
Of course, the Earth is flat. How else would it fit on the turtle's back?
Oh yeah.
The turtle flying through the cosmos. I don't even remember which ancient culture that is a that is a throwback to, but it is one that you believe that the turtle is you're on the big turtle's back flying around the sun. But no, it is. This is one that it's tough for me. So I'm going to try to just kind of throw in some different ideas that the conspiracists have, and feel free to tie in any one of those, A, B, or C, or a different one as well, a different angle if there is one. But a lot of people believe that after Neil Armstrong came back, he became a bit of a hermit in some ways. He wasn't all over the public eye, even though he was this enormous celebrity, first man to ever walk on the moon. And he kind of did to some degree become a hermit. Most people just write it off as, oh, he's a private person. He wasn't a celebrity. He was a dude. He was a scientist. He was a pilot. He was he didn't have much else to say other than what, he rested on his laurels, and those are some great laurels to rest on. But, and did Neil Armstrong lie? A lot of they like to show some of these different quotes from Neil Armstrong, different press conferences from Neil Armstrong over the years, and a lot of people really read into them. At one point, Neil Armstrong says that the parrot can say what other people want him to say. I'm paraphrasing here. The parrot can say what other people want him to say, but he isn't really much of a flyer. Isn't that great at flying? And some people take those words that he always talks about the parrot as him secretly telling the world that he was just saying what they wanted him to say. I have seen these videos. I think Neil Armstrong is just kind of a nervous speaker, and I really don't read much into that.
You say enough, and any of your words can probably be twisted in some way or another.
Sure.
Even if he went to the moon and it's all completely true, chances are he would say something that could be misconstrued in some way eventually in the rest of his life.
Sure.
And as somebody who thinks it was faked, I mean,
sure.
I don't know if that's necessarily
You're
strong
debunking
argument.
that.
Yeah, I don't think that Neil Armstrong was trying to secretly tell the world that.
I mean, it's possible he may have had misgivings or regrets, and especially as you get older, and you think, wow, I pulled the wool over the world's eyes. Like, is that something you want to die knowing that you did, and maybe have regrets and want to come out? But at the same time, there would most likely be repercussions for your loved ones, I'm sure. In some way.
What do you guys have any thoughts on the Stanley Kubrick angle? This idea that Stanley Kubrick and or some of his people, or other people in Hollywood, had a hand in faking the moon landing and filming it in a studio, and that Kubrick later gave hints out in his movies, namely The Shining. The Shining is the big one that people quote a lot. Do you guys buy into that at all? And then later, of course, we know that Kubrick had a hand in Eyes Wide Shut, which definitely was, in fact, a kind of like a last-minute expose the Illuminati film before he died, in essence.
Even if it wasn't him, I mean, obviously, if it was fake, that means this was all done on a stage somewhere. Somebody in Hollywood was likely involved. It's not like NASA had employees who were experienced in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, just because, I mean, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag now. I couldn't already tell before, but I don't believe in the conspiracy. So
right. I mean, and you don't buy into any of this. Stanley Kubrick was hiding stuff in The Shining, and that Jack Nicholson's I've been watching too much golf. I keep
People
saying
see
Jack Nicholson.
people see what they want to see in certain aspects.
So I mean, you're basically just saying like, listen, The Shining is a weird movie. It's creepy. It's
I don't know that you can discard it that easily though, because I mean, even the simplest of a prop in a movie can be well thought out in many scenes. So it's not. I don't think there's any such thing as coincidence when it comes to that. That all of these things would just magically show up pointing to that, unless somebody's
what were
making
some
it
of
that
them?
way.
What were some of them?
in The Shining.
Yes.
What are they, Ed? What's the big thing? Ed's got some. He's gonna get to them. We'll come back to it. Let's jump into one of the big ones. One of the big ones are here. The flag was waving. Right. I mean that's a big one that they talk about with the stage shot.
And that's one that I'm sorry, Ed. I was gonna say that's one that really gets people, but it actually wasn't waving.
Do you know what the official story behind it? The official debunk?
Well, it was
because I know a little bit about it. But
well, for one, it was folded,
uh-huh.
and it's not going to. It's not going to all of a sudden iron itself out.
Sure.
Especially on the moon where there is no
and what they say is there's a stint, there's a rod in the top of the flag, which is otherwise, going along with the idea that there's no wind on the moon, there's nothing to otherwise it would just be flat, it would just be hanging there. They put the stint in it to give the illusion that it stays straight, or to make the thing stay straight. And what they show you, and from what I've seen with the videos, they say it only moves when they move it. And just because there's no wind doesn't mean that when you move the flag that it wouldn't still react to the physical movement that you put on it. The inertia would still move it and cause it to go back and forth. So
you know what? I'm sorry, but if you're trying to fake a moon landing, I mean, I'm sure they'd have some sense that a flag wouldn't wave.
Well, they would, but somebody just accidentally left a fan on at Area 51. And it just, moved it a little.
But people have been making movies at that point for, decades.
Sure. But they just thought we're dumb, right?
That would be one of the instances where they're like, okay, cut. Let's do another take of that where the flag isn't moving.
Well, they're
but it was on live television though for everyone.
Even if solar winds
was it though? If it was a conspiracy, would it have been live television?
Okay, yes. I mean, they say it was, but you're right that just why wouldn't you just tape it and then play it like it was live?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. No, I don't disagree with that. I'm just throwing the stuff out there. I don't.
Oh, I can see your mom. Is Lent over? I'm sorry, Ed. One last thing. Lent over?
Is Lent over? No,
Yeah.
it's not over.
Oh. What's your mom liking stuff on Facebook then?
Oh.
I think I'm calling her out.
Uh-oh. Well, I mean, I guess she didn't comment though, did she?
No.
I think she's saying she will not comment or post.
Oh, okay.
She can't tell us.
That's the angle, huh?
Perhaps, yeah. I don't know. Good question. I'll ask her.
Sorry, Ed. Go ahead.
Oh, so there are actually photos of the flag. Just set aside for a minute that it's actually waving, but the flag pointing in different directions, basically in different angles. As in, if I'm a flag waving right here and you take a picture here, then why would it not? Looking at it from another angle, why would it look like that? Like if you look at, I'll show you guys, but essentially what amounts to the exact same flag, but different angles.
I think you've got to be very careful when you're looking at pictures, especially pictures off of the internet, because I think when you, like what I said before, the
everyone
mind
has Photoshop.
The mind sees what you want to see, and you know what? I believe that too, Ed. I believe that a lot of the photos, because I'm sorry, Josh, and I'm jumping ahead a little.
It's
bit.
okay. You're fine. Go ahead.
With some of these conspiracy theories, that yes, some of those photos that they did bring forth, has fueled a lot of that conspiracy. I'm talking about the shadows and the guys in the shadows, and I fully do believe that NASA doctored the photos.
They've admitted to doctoring the photos. What is it? Something blue, the picture of the Earth. They admitted to touching that up.
and the stars and everything like that.
Yep.
And
that is a big one too. Where are the stars? Right?
Exactly, but I don't think
the reflection or the light causes it so you don't see it because of the light reflecting off the moon. Except we see light reflect off the Earth even at night, and
Sure.
you still see the stars.
I think that a lot of the photos were doctored, but I think that they were doctored to enhance to be more visually appealing to people looking at them, and so that they could use them. And I know this sounds it may sound naive, but so they could use them in, I don't want to say marketing material, but
So what? We could always go back and look at the original footage. Oh, that's right, they don't have it.
No, it's true. I mean, and okay, you guys mentioned the light sources. The another one of the big contentions is
but on
that
the
there
other
appears.
one second,
Go
guys.
ahead, go ahead.
But on the other side of that, though, if they didn't have the original footage and it was filmed in a movie studio, then why say they don't have the original footage? Why just say, oh, here's the original footage right here, and it's the same footage that they
Because they don't want it to be scrutinized more heavily.
Because anything that's out there is not firsthand.
But it's going to be scrutinized anyway. I mean,
because then they can say, well, that's somebody photoshopped that. That's not part of the original.
yeah. So why don't they just say that then?
That's kind of what they're saying. We don't have the original footage.
One of the other big things is the separate light sources, right? And you guys have
Yeah.
heard this contention that there should be only one light source when on the moon, and that should just be the sun. But there appears to be different ones, and they say that the different shadows coming from different angles shows that there's a different light source available, namely, a light from lights from a camera, lights from a lights from something in a studio. What I wondered is that, and I'm not a scientist. This actually would be nice if Kyle was here for that portion of it, but he couldn't make it this week. One thing, is that true for sure that the only light source would be the sun? I mean, just because wouldn't the space shuttle have some light bulbs on it? Wouldn't if there's a thruster on the engine of the space shuttle, would that not create a different light source? And I'm genuinely asking right now. I don't know.
I was thinking the same thing. I think there's a lot of different variables you can put into here. I'm thinking you could put camera in, and I think you could put in other light sources, like you said, from the camera, from the space shuttle, from wherever. And I also think that you could add some of the reflective surfaces maybe on the moon itself, or maybe the reflective what's being reflected from. I mean, could the Earth generate? I mean, we get light generated from the moon here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Could the Earth in turn generate some light from?
I have no idea. I honestly don't know. I'm not discounting it or saying otherwise.
I don't know either because I've never been on the moon.
Right, and and even I'm not saying that you can only have an opinion if you have been to the moon, because if you're a guy who's smarter than me, perhaps you can throw something out there. But I mean, because sometimes they break down some of the photos, and they'll show, the shadow, for instance, on the the bottom two steps of the of the platform coming off of the shuttle or the rocket, whatever the proper terminology is. They're coming off of those, and it's shadowed.
The LEM.
Is that okay? Is that right? Okay, good call. And they'll show the astronaut's foot down there, and the contention is that shouldn't that be complete darkness? Shouldn't you not be able to see their foot at all if it is in fact in the shadow of that, because we have no light source to show that. There's no light source reflecting to that area, especially when we've established that is where the shadow lies. And when people say that, it kind of makes sense to me, But truthfully, I don't know. I don't know what that would look like or what it would be, to be honest with you.
And I think this is where maybe you and I can kind of get on the same page here, Ed, that part was doctored. That it was, but I think it was doctored for the benefit of people, enabling people to see where the astronaut was.
I mean, could they
It's-
not have a light on the camera they were using to take the picture?
So they're lies, but they're good lies.
Yeah, they're little white,
White lies,
lies.
okay.
Yeah, I don't, and that's where I kind of do go to what Ed's saying a little bit, that
Don't
If-
believe
if-
Ed.
if
Ed's
you-
crazy.
if you
I
bel-
am.
if you believe that you're being lied to, then you should at least question the rest of the, air quotes, truths you're being told.
I think Ed wants to be lied to. I think that's what we're getting at here,
perhaps
right, Ed?
I don't know about that.
he doesn't want to be lied to. He just thinks he always is.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a little paranoid.
Maybe, hey, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean somebody isn't following you. That is, I'm a firm believer in that. Okay, unexplained objects in the reflection of the helmets of the astronauts. There's the famous picture that they blow up, that the conspiracy theorists blow up, that you see the helmet and you see the other astronauts' reflection in it, legit. But then there's another object. There's another. There's definitely is legitimately another object. There isn't an explanation for that, and people say that it looks like a camera light. It just looks like a studio light in the upper right portion of the.
Oh, okay. So again, there couldn't be lights on the.
Maybe, I don't know.
on
I don't
the
know.
lens?
I'm just
You see,
throwing stuff out
see,
there.
It's just
Well, I mean, it only takes one. I mean, one thing not to fit, really, doesn't it?
Yes, it does actually. It does.
What,
I-
for people
for something to be true,
for
everything
people to
has
start
be
asking
true.
questions. Yes, you're right, but I mean, it doesn't mean something like that just can't be kind of absurd, though.
I think another big one, and I mean, you'll see information on this that varies wildly, but what about the Van Allen belts?
And you know what? That's one.
Talk about that a little bit,
yeah,
because that's a big part of this.
So basically, there are 2 plus sometimes more belts of radiation that surround the Earth, and then the 2 main ones, and then depending on other like solar radiation, other ones can like come and go. But essentially, it's radiation. I mean, what do you think radiation is? You get exposed to it, you
Sure.
get sick and die.
Mhm.
And I think they claim that it took them a few hours to travel through it, but with the technology that we supposedly went to the moon with their spacesuits, which I don't even think they were completely on when they were going to that portion, and the ship, that's a lot of radiation to shield from, especially for quite a bit of time.
And I guess that what we have to ask ourselves here then is maybe go back to the Bill Cooper theory and all of this is, has the government been totally truthful to us when it comes
About
to
what they were capable of. in
about what they're capable
1969.
of? Yeah.
And how much would that, because like I've said before, this all fits in narrative. If NASA's going full bore, maybe they didn't find out about this until maybe some of this is honest and true, and we're actually trying to get out there and get to the moon, and we run into aliens, or we find out at some point, holy crap, it's impossible, we can't make it out there. Do you then turn to the public and say, hey, I know you've been pumping tons of money into us, but we're basically trapped here on this planet? Or do maybe you keep going through and continue because you're pulling everybody along? If you want to continue manipulating people, you got to continue on with that. And just how much would that change your worldview if you knew that without some maybe advanced alien technology, you're stuck on this planet? There is no way off. How would that change your worldview?
No, it's a good point, and I guess the question that I ask, and I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I'll jump into it right now. The question is, okay, so we went there in 1969. One of the stats they love to give, and it's one that I've quoted on more than one occasion on this show and off this show, is they say that there is more computing power in your smartphone. In your smartphone, and the one that is in the back pocket of every single person walking around, or, well, not everybody, but damn near everybody walking around, especially in America and most of the world, that your smartphone has more computing power than the space shuttle that went to the moon. Okay, I actually buy that. I believe it. I genuinely do believe that. How come we never went back?
And why have no other countries gone there?
That's what I mean. And that too, there was this big space race. The U.S., Russia, what else? Why didn't Russia ever go? I mean, why didn't the Soviet Union ever go? We went in '69. We were both trying to go in the '60s.
How were the economies then?
Well, they were bad, but
but
we didn't. I mean, the Russians had a legitimate space program.
No, I know they did.
They were pumping a lot of money into theirs.
But did they outspend themselves though?
Perhaps, but I'm not saying why didn't they go in 1970? Why didn't they go in '79? Why didn't they go in '89? Why didn't they go in right now? Why did they give up?
And since when has a poor economy prevented the government from spending money?
Well,
I mean, Russia at the time, the Soviet Union was communist. Their economy might have sucked. There might have been legitimate serfs still running around in Russia at the time because, well, communism can be really bad for the lesser class people, but they had access to all the money they want. They didn't need to worry about congressional spending. They didn't need to worry about how their money was being allocated. They wanted the money, they took the money. The money they had was 100% theirs. And it's still like that in Russia, for the most part. Whether you're talking, Soviet Union in the mid to late 80s or Russia right now. It didn't stop them when we got the nukes first. It didn't stop them from making nukes. When we got aircraft carriers first, it didn't stop them from getting aircraft carriers
I think
next.
at that point you're talking about priority.
But they said it was such a huge priority.
But you
And
also,
the infrastructure
Well, they
was in place. It was there.
They said it was,
but-
but obviously it wasn't.
budget matters, but a lot of that money went into research and design, so you already have the technology. I mean, once you invent something, it's not like you have to spend the same amount of money to reinvent it. You already know what it is and how to build it. Theoretically, it should be cheaper to go to the moon.
Absolutely. It should be significantly cheaper. And that's what my point is that if we could do it in '69 with that sounds kind of gross, do it in '69. If we could do it in the late '60s, then with the power of a single smartphone, then it should be really easy now. It should be really easy, and it actually should be really cheap. There's countless numbers of people that would love to have the opportunity to risk their life at going to the moon. And not just dopes, really smart people who would give anything to have the opportunity, even if you said there's an 80% chance of failure, who would die for the opportunity to go to the moon in the US, in China, in Russia, in all over the world. I mean, we're not talking like, we're not saying, why doesn't Italy go? Well, we know why Italy doesn't go. They don't care about stuff like that. They're not in that. We're not saying, why isn't Ethiopia going to the moon? But
I just think there's too
Russia,
much.
China, the US, why haven't they gone?
I think there's just too much going on in the world. I do. I think there's too much going on in the world.
There
for
was
people to
there was a
worry
lot
about.
going on for the U.S. and
It's a whole lot
Well,
going on.
that
There's a
that
whole lot
was
going
you
on
know
back
that
then.
that was one of the conspiracies too. That was that the moon was a wag the dog scenario to get people to get their mind off of the Vietnam War.
I mean, correct me if Russia was winning. I keep saying Russia. I should be
Yes,
saying
sorry.
the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union
Soviet
was
Russia.
winning the space race at one point.
Yeah.
Before we went to the moon, they sent a person into space first. They sent a dog before we sent an ape.
and they launched a satellite first.
Right. They did. They did all this first. Now, I'll be honest. This part of the conspiracy, I buy into a lot. But this goes into one of our deep issues from several months ago about aliens, about space exploration, to me, there is an answer to it. Why haven't we gone back? I think we haven't gone back because someone told us not to. Namely, the more advanced civilization that's already hanging out on the moon. I truly do believe that. And I know that that's just as crazy as a conspiracy. In fact, actually, that's probably a crazier conspiracy.
So wait a second. Let me get this straight. You think we've been to the moon,
Yes.
but after we went, the people who or the beings inhabiting the moon said, "Hey,
That was fun for you for a while. Now cut it out.
yeah, okay."
I do. Whether it's gray aliens or whatever we've come to call them.
I want to ask Ed this.
The aliens that we are in contact with via that conspiracy, I believe said, okay, you did your thing. You proved you could do it. Now cut it out because we actually have work to do here.
Do you believe that the government has come in contact and had dialogue with aliens?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Because Adam, you do as well, correct? If I
Yeah, I
recall
do.
correctly
Yeah, I
from
do.
the from
do.
our Alien Deep Issues
yes,
cast.
yes, I do.
That is, that's something that actually it was the three of us and Nick who were on the Deep Issues Alien Conspiracy cast, and although we believed in it in varying degrees, actually from a pretty hefty varying degree, actually all four of us that day said that we do believe that we've been lied to about aliens and that aliens do exist and that the government has some sort of knowledge of aliens. And because I remember that night we broke it down, and it was actually Ed who was on the far end of believing it the most. Then Adam, you were next. Then me, and Nick was by far the least believing, but still believed it. Still did believe that there was something. Still believed that, for instance, that they didn't tell us the truth about Roswell. That they have knowledge that they're not sharing. That they do know that there are aliens of some sort.
Quick detour here.
Sure.
I saw the new Independence Day.
Yeah.
It is god awful.
Is it that bad?
Yeah.
I didn't
did you
see it.
No.
Don't watch it. It's horrible.
Yeah, I was so excited when I heard about it, and then I heard it was terrible, and I'll probably go see it. I'll see it eventually, but yeah, I haven't seen
It's
it.
one of the worst pieces of
Is
shit
it
I've
really?
ever seen.
How do you make a sequel to that movie?
They
Well,
come back.
They come back.
Yes.
And there's like,
They still destroyed most of the earth.
do you guys know Cthulhu from South Park?
No.
No.
Well, yeah, I know the Cthulhu, the old books. I don't know it from South Park fame.
There's this big Cthulhu monster looking thing in it. So, anyway,
Oh,
sorry.
is there really?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Jeez. No, I have not. I did not see the new Independence Day. Sounds like I should be happy I didn't.
It's horrible. It is horrible.
And I love the first Independence Day and all its cheesiness. I love that movie.
It's a fun movie.
Right.
This
it really
this
is.
one isn't fun. It's cringeworthy and shit.
I mean, granted, Independence Day, although they put it in, in modern terrestrial form, is probably the biggest Star Wars ripoff in like a whole big, huge myriad of Star Wars ripoffs that Hollywood has done over the years. The general, the Joint Chief of Staff dude, Robert Loggia, they might as well call him Admiral Akbar in that movie. They should just call him Admiral Akbar and be done with it. It would actually the story would be better.
So who's President Whitmore then?
He can even in that movie he can even be President Whitmore, but obviously he's like a mix of Lando, Luke, and Han. Well, no, I guess he's like Lando, and then Will Smith, and Ian Malcolm. I know that's not his name in the movie. Whatever. Jeff Goldblum
Yeah.
are like Luke and Han, but I mean, really, they should just call him Admiral Akbar. At least in the one scene at the end. It's just, I mean, our cruisers can't repel firepower of that magnitude. I mean, you might as well just say that. You might as well just say it. But we digress. We could do a whole show on Independence Day, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that. Maybe people do want to hear that. Write us an email. Tell us you want. Please, if 3 people send us emails telling us that they want us to do an entire show on Independence Day, we'll do it. We will do it.
It's gonna get to if one person sends us an email. All right, we're just gonna do a show.
Okay,
Send me an
Adam,
email right now.
Adam, if you send me an email telling me that you want us to do this
no,
show,
it's gonna come down to hey, you know what? It's the 4th of July. We figured we should probably do a show about Independence
right.
Day.
Today we celebrate our Independence Day. But that is where I buy into the conspiracy.
I
If
just couldn't
there's a
believe
conspiracy
I
at
just
all,
couldn't believe they brought the Jewish state and Iraq together.
yeah, it was impressive.
Sorry, go
Very
ahead. Sorry, go
impressive.
ahead, Josh.
You can't explain to me why we haven't gone back to the moon, why we're not on Mars yet, why other countries haven't done it. I mean, why on Earth or in the cosmos wouldn't the Soviet Union have done it? Wouldn't Russia have done it? By this point, we're talking 50 years, not 48
China at this
years.
point.
Yeah, China too. Why hasn't the dude from Virgin Records or Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Why haven't they been to the moon?
Or George Soros.
It should be easy for them. What's the dude? David Branson. Why hasn't he been to the moon? It should be easy for them.
I think it's Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. What did I say?
I think you said David.
I'm sorry. Yes, Richard Branson. Definitely the Virgin Records guy. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. They have the funding, the tech. It should be easy.
I mean, they're saying
This
they're
is
gonna-
this is simply like asking in 1960, why hasn't anyone made an airplane? The Wright brothers did it. I mean, but of course that wasn't necessary because tons of people had made airplanes.
Well, I think the reasoning that they normally give is, well, if we go, it's going to be an expanded scope, like putting people up there for a few years, and that takes more, and we need new technology that's cheaper and more efficient. And they retired the rocket that originally, was powerful enough to get them there, and that technology. And it's like, can't you just recreate all the stuff and go again?
And make it like 100 times better?
Yeah, and cheaper.
I mean, really, if you were, that's like them saying, why don't you guys do NASCAR anymore? It's like, oh, we could.
But
We could do NASCAR like we used to in the 60s, but our technology is so much better that we're just waiting till we can make it like a zillion times better. I mean, that
isn't it
doesn't
plausible?
make sense.
Isn't it plausible to believe though that they've been 6 times and we're just like, hey, you know what? There's nothing really there.
Then why wouldn't they say that?
I would believe it. I would believe it if we're.
Haven't they kind of already said it though?
I mean, if they come out and said, hey, we tested moon rock, we did a pretty thorough exploration with some of our probes, and essentially the moon is full of useless material that no way can we use, and it's just this giant floating rock.
Did they say it to you, or maybe did they say it to?
Why wouldn't you come public with that?
Adam, I agree with that statement. I think that would be a completely legitimate statement to make and a completely legitimate argument or discussion for us to have right now if we were talking in the year 1980. If they stopped going in 72 and people are saying in 80, hey, how come we don't go to the moon anymore? Which I know people were saying that in 1980. They said, well, yeah, it's true. I mean, we proved we could do it a bunch of times.
So what have they said?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Have they said anything? I don't think they give a reason. They say it's too expensive, which makes no sense.
I think they came out with some plans to go again in like 2020, but they said that along the lines of it needed to be cheaper, more efficient, and they wanted more.
And the George W. Bush administration was brimming with a resurgence of we're going to go to the moon, we're going to go to Mars, and that's fine. But so we went to the moon. It was this huge success. Why aren't we on Mars?
Why not?
Why haven't we gone to Mars yet?
There could be a huge industry for tourism. I mean, if you could send people on a vacation to the moon, there's plenty of rich
It would
people
pay for
saying to do
itself. It would pay
Yeah.
for itself, would it not?
Yeah.
They could all these other things that they're supposedly doing that are more important than going to the moon. You could pay for it by simply having super rich people pay you to take them to the moon.
Well, I think
They would do it.
I think they're already kind of working themselves into that, and it's not NASA so much doing it. It's like SpaceX
And that's cool. I'm
other
just
third
wondering why they haven't done it. I'm just wondering why it hasn't been done.
I just think I don't know if there's much of a point in doing it right now. I really don't.
I just, that's fine, I guess, Adam. I see what you're saying, but do you think that will you at least acknowledge that there is a bit of a point here?
No.
Why haven't we been? Why haven't we?
There's an entire new generations of people who never got to experience that either. Wouldn't that be cool if, even if it was just like the previous ones, if they sent a couple more people up to the moon and you got to watch that live on TV, I'd be watching that.
I would.
That would be.
It'd be
that'd
awesome.
So I think
And there's still a big market for it. Go down to Florida. I have relatives in Florida that it's huge for them every time they launch a rocket.
I
They're
think
there.
that-
They want to see the space shuttle take off. They want to see stuff happen. And I just wonder, why the hell aren't we doing it?
I think the interest is there. I think they want you to think that it's dwindled because they've made it dwindle on purpose.
I tend to agree with you, Ed. And I again, I don't necessarily think that I don't think the moon landing is fake. I don't. But I don't understand why we haven't done more.
You want to know something
I
else?
feel
that
like
maybe
they're
fuel-
lying to us. Why are they lying to us? Is
You want,
my
you want to know something else that may fuel the conspiracy theorists? about
Sure.
it? All 6 of the moon landings, didn't they happen during the Nixon administration?
Well, did you know that quite a few of the astronauts who have been to the moon were Freemasons too?
Oh, really? See, this is what we need to be getting
Yes,
into.
absolutely. Oh no, for sure. I mean, a big Freemason contingent involved in this. I just don't understand. I mean, maybe the reason is, and this goes to, I mean, Ed and I are not fans of government in any way. Maybe the reason is because NASA really sucks. You know what I mean? Maybe there isn't a conspiracy the traditional way people like us define conspiracy. Maybe the conspiracy is that NASA and the US government are so bad with money and so bad with planning that they just simply can't make it happen anymore through regulations and just bullshit, for lack of a better term, that we just can't do it anymore.
I'm definitely not a big government guy. I know very often it's pointed to, big government sucks because it's essentially inefficient and essentially incompetent. I'm almost of the mind now, though, that if it is inefficient, that's probably done on purpose. It's not inefficient, it's malicious.
I agree with you. I mean, that goes back to the old Mark Twain writings. I mean, Mark Twain talked a lot about, for government to be this bad, they either have to be totally incompetent or malicious in their intent. And I don't know which one is worse. Is his quote. Again, that's paraphrased. I do not have the quote in front of me. I do not have it memorized. But in essence, he's saying, I don't know which one's worse. That they're purposely bringing us down, or that we just have morons running this place. I mean, NASA wants to tell you that they have the best and the brightest working. Truly, maybe they did. Maybe there's no conspiracy here. Maybe they had the best and the brightest in the late 60s and early 70s, and they don't now.
It's like what Bruce Willis said. Come on, you're NASA. You should have
man
one
on the
plan.
moon,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, man on the moon. You should have one guy thinking of a plan and the other guy backing him up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should have a plan to back up your backup plan and a plan to back up your backup plan's backup plan. I tend to agree with that. So I think, what aren't they telling us? I've made this statement on this show many times. I've made it on other shows. I've made it in private many times. But if you ask your husband if he's cheating on you, and he says no, but then he walks out of the room every single time his phone rings, you see him erasing his text messages, you find a used condom in the backseat of his car, and you find a bunch of receipts to flower places on your credit cards. So you ask him again, are you cheating on me? And he says no. What is the most likely scenario? He's lying, right? I mean, it could be anything. It could be anything. Maybe those are really crazy stuff. Maybe there's a hobo sneaking into the backseat of his car at night, banging chicks and leaving the condoms. Maybe the flowers were for his mother. Maybe.
But then why didn't he say?
And that's my point, is that I'm not saying that it's the only scenario, but what is by far the most likely answer in that scenario? He's lying. That's what anyone would think. If You're sitting there eating dinner with your wife, and she tells you that exact story about her best friend and what she's going through. And she says, "Oh, honey, what do you think? What do you think's going on? What are you gonna say?" Your answer is gonna be, "Dude's full of shit. He's full of it. He's lying to her. He's totally full of it." Adam, do we need to tell people to evacuate Facebook Live and come join us on theempiremedia.com?
Yeah.
Okay, because we're not totally done with the show here. We're gonna keep going a little bit longer here because we do got to wrap up.
Mhm.
But our Facebook Live feed is going to come to a close here. So if you're watching us on Facebook Live, you still want to join, pop over to theempiremedia.com.
Yep.
It's actually a better, fuller version of the show anyway. So please do that.
There's a link right above the live broadcast.
Perfect. We're not going to be too much longer, but if you're, we are going to cut the Facebook Live
if you want to
feed.
catch the final leg of the show, then come
Yeah,
join
please do. But that's my only point, is that it seems apparent that the government is lying about something when it comes to this issue. They are definitely lying about something. So when you find out that your husband lied about cheating all this time, and then you say, "Hey, 5 years ago, when you didn't come home that night, were you cheating on me then too?" And he says, No, I wasn't. You caught me here, but no, I was not cheating then. Are you going to believe him? Well, maybe he's telling the truth. Who knows? I don't know. But you've already established that the guy's a liar. So all you've really established by that question is, it doesn't matter. I just know I can't trust you. And that's what the government's done here. So, again, my question is, why the hell hasn't NASA done more? JFK died in 1963. It was him who went to the American people and said, "We're going to go to the moon. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that." Not because it's easy, but because it is hard. That was JFK's quote. That we're going to do these things because we're America, damn it. We are going to do these things and we're going to get them accomplished. Well, what changed in the last 50 years?
There's always going to be individuals, though, that are going to always ask questions, no matter what NASA says or no matter what anybody says.
I understand that. I'm one of them.
Because you should question everything.
No, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but there's always going to be those individuals.
My question is, what the hell has NASA accomplished in the last 40 years?
And answer me this. So, okay, so you
Am
say
I NASA first?
Huh?
Am I NASA?
Yeah, you're NASA.
Okay, go ahead.
So, so we're a country that loves to drive our economy by creating wars. That's no secret. We have a lot of companies that manufacture weapons and that greatly benefits from.
You're saying our country, the United States.
Yeah, the United States.
Okay.
In other countries as well.
In other countries as well. Yeah, there's a lot of rich people being made richer by a lot of people getting killed. Whatever. So why wouldn't you want to do the exact same thing with space technology and other things? Because it's not like NASA has just only gone to the moon. They've patented so much technology has come out of the research and design. So
a lot of good stuff too, especially if you're a believer in this. A lot of really good stuff has come from going to the moon.
Yeah,
that's what they would tell us.
Yeah, I mean
that it wasn't a waste of money to go to the moon. We got a lot of great stuff. We discovered new elements. We discovered, remedies for cancer. We discovered all these things going to the moon. So why aren't we going there anymore? Why aren't we going to Mars? Why aren't we going to Venus? Why aren't we going to Pluto?
Because that stuff isn't there.
Well,
we don't know that. Not on Mars?
Even if you
I'm talking on the moon.
Even if you believe that the moon landing was faked, you can't say, well, Velcro doesn't exist. They invented that. That obviously exists. And I've heard it argued from somebody who's a proponent of big government that a good argument for that is all the money that was dumped into NASA and all the good besides space exploration, all the technology that has come out of that. So why don't, as a country who loves to drive our economy in that sort of way, why not do it through the space program, through NASA?
And hey, know that I'm an extremely small government person, but I'm also I'm not somebody that's one-sided in my beliefs. I can believe anything, and know that I'm an extremely small government person. I am a big-time libertarian, but I actually am fully
Big L libertarian.
no, I'm a small L
Oh,
libertarian. Small
sorry.
L libertarian, not a big L libertarian. I'm a staunch small L libertarian, but a small L libertarian nonetheless. But I'm actually, and a lot of my libertarian cohorts disagree with me here, I'm a huge supporter of the space program if they have results.
Mhm.
If. I'm not somebody that doesn't think that we should be doing this because it's a waste of money. I'm not a big waste of money guy. I don't really care if the government wastes money all the time. I just assume that they waste money going to the moon. That to me, that's not a waste of money. That's something important, and most importantly, it's not taking away anybody's liberty to go to the moon.
And just because you're a small government guy doesn't mean there can't be government programs or government spending. It's just you don't want a bunch of useless spending.
I don't
at
want
the top.
waste,
Yeah.
right? And hey, if you waste a bunch of money trying to go to Mars and you fail, I'm not the guy who's going to be saying, "See, look at all that wasted money." No, you're trying something.
Mhm.
You're trying to accomplish something. So I'm just wondering, maybe is the conspiracy here, if there is in fact a conspiracy at all, is the conspiracy that maybe we didn't stop going to the moon? Maybe we did go to Mars.
Maybe.
Maybe there's somebody on the way to Uranus right now.
Oh man.
I know. Adam's butthole just puckered. But and that's my point. All I know is some of this stuff doesn't add up. And the answer to me is either since the mid 70s, NASA is a colossal waste of time and money. They're lying to us. And or they've lost their way and they're worthless and they're ignorant. It could be one or an amalgamation of several of those things, but I just don't feel like my biggest question, what the hell's NASA been doing for the last 40 years? You know, I mean, I always like to say, you know, I'm really glad that those people that say, oh, space program's a waste of time, exploration's a waste of time, all this stuff. I'm really glad that not all of the kings and queens of Europe felt that way in the late 1490s. You know, and Columbus was a lunatic. I'll go. Give me a couple of boats. I have no idea what's on the other side of the Atlantic, but give me a crew of guys and 3 boats, and I'll just keep heading west till I hit something.
Yep.
I mean, we glorify it in a lot of ways, or now we demonize it in a lot of ways, but that's pretty much in essence all Columbus did. All of those explorers, Cortez and Coronado and De Soto and Magellan and Columbus, all these guys did was say, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
I don't buy into the maybe that there's no utility if they want to use that excuse. Well, we've been there and you know we see it and it's just this giant rock. Besides the whole tourism thing, there's got to be a lot of utility. Like maybe, you know, in the future we might want to be going to other planets or to Mars or something else, and it might be nice to have some data of what's it like when people live in space. Now I'm not talking in the space station. That's, you know, that's
Mhm.
not too far away. I'm like in some remote planet, you know, you're on the moon and the nearest person is really far away unless, you know, with some other people. What's
Sure.
it like psychologically? What's it like health-wise? Maybe there are actually issues on the human body if you spend extended periods, you know, in a situation like that. You know, things that you could get data from that.
No, you know, Ed, I agree with you. And there's a lot of lip service that can be paid to this. And Adam, you make some really good points about, well, they just found it all there. Or it's too expensive. Or there's nothing else to do. But which one is it? Did we find all these great discoveries on the moon every time we went and it was worth the money? Or have we discovered that it's really not worth a damn and it's not worth our time or our effort or our treasure to go there? Because quite frankly, you hear both those excuses a lot, but truthfully, only one of them can be true. Because if I go in my basement, you know, once a month for a year, and I find something cool every single time, and then that 13th month just decide, yeah, I'm pretty sure I found it all. That's dumb. Like you're 12 for 12, right? You went down there once a month, you found something awesome every single time, and now you're just going to work off the assumption that I probably found it all. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work. It doesn't add up. And if you found all this stuff that was awesome on the moon, why wouldn't you think you would find equally or more awesomer stuff on Mars? You know, I mean, what's to not find? And hey, I wouldn't even have a problem if they sent somebody and they said, you know what? We just spent $7 billion to go to Mars, and there's nothing there. It's worthless, guys. Well, I mean, to me, I would be like, well, hey, at least we went to Mars. But, and hey, I get the idea that, you know, a lot of people say, and I don't disagree with this point. People say, why are we exploring the moon? Why are we trying to do all this when we haven't even explored all of Antarctica? We haven't explored the bottom of the sea. You know, we haven't even got to stuff on our own planet. But again, which one is it?
Because Antarctica is the border to the rest of the Earth.
Exactly. And that is what the flat earthers would say. That's why, especially in recent years, travel to Antarctica has been banned or limited. They say, well, it's because people are about to find the edge of the Earth.
You know, maybe another topic, but you know, I'm not a flat earther, but that does seem kind of odd that, you know, why haven't we explored that? Maybe it is just some giant ice sheet, but wouldn't we like to know that?
Right. I mean, I don't know why we don't. And I don't know why we've given up on exploring. And to me, my idea is we haven't given up on exploring. They're just not telling us what they're finding.
Exactly.
So, as somebody that, I mean, you want my theory on the moon conspiracy? I don't actually think the moon landing was faked. I just want to know what it is that they're not telling us.
Because I hope it's the alien thing.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and a lot of people say this. I didn't make that up.
I hope it's something cool like that. If there is some conspiracy behind it, I'm not saying there isn't. If there is some conspiracy behind it, no offense, Ed, I hope it's that and not something dumb like them just trying to lie about some stupid space race. You know, I hope it's not some pride thing. You know?
What I think what it would actually be, it would probably be something like the Van Allen belts, where they found out it was actually impossible to get out there.
Okay, do you know what hole I actually see in that?
And I think if anything, that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
But they still made those promises. It's kind of like the Trump thing, you know, where he's made all these promises and they somehow have to keep that promise to the people and make it not seem like they failed in their pursuit of this ultimate goal of reaching the moon. And people not knowing or not being totally in on that radiation belt is something that they can hide.
I will jump to, I'm going to make one point first, but I will jump to why the big hole I see in the Van Allen belt thing, because I think that's intriguing. I really do think it is.
What are you, a scientist or something now?
No, I'm not.
Now he's a philosophizer.
Hey, I'm a philosopher. Well, maybe not, but philosophy something is at least a subject I feel like I can talk about. Science really isn't. I'm not a scientist by any stretch. I'm not a math guy. I'm not a science guy. I'm not smart enough to be any of those things. But what I would say is this Van Allen belt thing, some of the stuff they say to me is very intriguing. What they claim, the debunk of that, according to NASA or to other scientists, is that they say they were only in that area for a matter of minutes. And they say that, sure, the radiation could be bad, it could be nasty, it could kill you, but they say doing that is simply no different than living through chemotherapy, which people do on a regular basis. Hell, some of our sickest people live through chemotherapy and radiation on a daily basis. And the idea that astronauts who are in prime condition with some sort of suit barrier couldn't get through there with minimal damage to their body is not that crazy. is what they claim. That the idea that you're talking Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, these guys were in prime physical shape. They're there for a matter of minutes. Maybe it did make them throw up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible. But my thing is, if it was impossible, because going back to the why haven't we gone back? Why hasn't Russia done it? Why hasn't China done it? If it was impossible, I think you would have Russian scientists, Russian cosmonauts, Chinese scientists saying, listen, we've done the math. You can't do it. It can't be done. You can't get through the Van Allen belt without burning up from the radiation. If that's what it would behoove them to make those statements. It would be good for Russia to say, listen, I'll tell you why we haven't gone to the moon. Because you can't get through the Van Allen belt. And guess what? We can't do it, and neither can they. So the Americans are lying to you. But honestly, the Russians, even though they don't like us, and the Chinese, even though they don't like us, they're not saying that.
So
They don't deny that the U.S. went to the moon.
And you know what? It might not be a thing, but to relate it like I did earlier to something like climate change, if you're a top scientist and you think climate change is completely bunk, you come out about that. Are you going to be heard? No,
You're right.
You're
That's the
basically
point.
going to be blacklisted, blackballed from the community, and looked at it as like, you know what? You're one person out of there's thousands of us who believe that.
Well, and Adam, like you said earlier, you said, well, what's more important? Debunking the moon debunkers or climate change or the potential, no matter what side you believe on climate change, just the idea of what needs the truth about climate change. Regardless of what side you're on, what's more important, the truth about climate change or the truth about whether the moon landing was fake? And I agree with you. It's the climate change thing. But which one is more important to NASA? It should be the moon landing debunking. That's NASA's job. NASA's job should have nothing to do with climate change. There's plenty of dopes out there on both sides of the aisle whining about climate change and studying climate change. But if you work at NASA, yeah, actually the moon part should be your priority, not the climate change.
What do you
part.
think a lot of their funding is for at this point?
Right. No, and that's true. That is very true. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's what, NASA's spending more time on that than they are on going to the moon. And I just kind of...
Again, I think that would have much more. There'd be much more to that if we were sitting here, like you said earlier, in 1980, as opposed to 2017.
And that's what I mean when I said the thing about 1980 is that it would make sense to say no, but at this point, it should be so cheap and easy to go to the moon that we should just be doing it for fun. I mean, we're going up in space all the time anyway. We got a space station. We got satellites. We got all this stuff. Why isn't there a base on the moon?
Maybe there is.
Maybe there is. Or maybe, like we talked about in the Alien Conspiracy Show, there's supposedly some missing footage from, when Armstrong and Aldrin, lost contact for, 10, 11 minutes, something like that. And a lot of people claim that that's when they're talking
Yeah,
about...
it's when they're getting the next scene ready.
You got to change sets sometime.
A lot of people claim that when they were on the moon, they saw other things. They landed on the moon, and not just Aldrin and Armstrong, that later when they went to the moon, some of them claim that they saw other rovers. Like it was like a mining operation, in essence, as part of this conspiracy, that they saw things. Maybe not even beings. They saw stuff. They saw mining things. They saw things on the dark side of the moon. And they hid that from us. So I truly do think that it's a possibility that if there was some other operation going on, that they said, okay, you landed on the moon, you planted a flag, that was cute. That's adorable, but we're actually up here with a mining operation. We're actually up here doing something important. So, you're effing our shit up, In essence, I view it almost like the scene in Jurassic Park. Hammond coming down in the helicopter and screwing up their dig, and them saying like, "Hey, we're trying to mine here, and you're landing obscure, archaic rovers.
Turn it off.
on our moon. I mean, what are you doing, man? You just you lost us a day's worth.
Is Aldrin in there pointing?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
to
like
go into the, to
yeah,
go
it's
into
just
the
like
trailer?
cut it out, a-hole. We're trying to work here.
You know how they could actually debunk all of the conspiracy theorists?
How?
If they could somehow, maybe this is easier said than done, but if they could just make a telescope powerful enough to point at the moon, you could see the tracks and the flag and all that. Because other countries that have been to the moon have, or you know, their whatever
Rovers.
rovers, yeah. They've said basically, yeah, we've seen the stuff that you guys have left there, but
We saw your garbage.
yeah, but you're also talking about, you know, I distrust those governments just as much as I distrust my
Well,
own. But
and the claim is another claim that goes along with this conspiracy is that there are telescopes powerful enough to see that it could be seen. And why don't they just show us? Why don't they just show us a picture of some of the junk they left there?
yeah, if I could go to, you know, there are some super powerful telescopes that can see way out there. If you could get that to point right at the moon, and I could go there and look at it and be like, oh, no shit, you know what? I stand corrected.
Mhm.
If they could see tracks, though, wouldn't they be able to see the flag itself?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
close enough
something.
that you could see enough to be like, yeah, I can tell something.
Supposedly, the one pod is just left there, right? Or am I wrong about that?
No, I think they
The pod that's kind of next to the flag.
Oh, the lem?
Yeah, isn't that left there?
Well, no, because they need to get off somehow.
No, I guess the lem isn't what I'm trying to say. I thought there was some sort of pod
I
that's
think
like
I know.
left
I know.
there.
I think the rover is still up there that they were driving around.
They claim that because that's another thing that people say, they look at the rover and then they show pictures of the LEM and the other things that landed there, and they say, how'd that rover fit in there? It's bigger than the thing they flew there in. And NASA says that no, it's almost, I mean, they basically, this is like a quote from some scientists I read this afternoon, actually, or maybe it was yesterday, them saying that no, that rover is actually kind of like an archaic version of a transformer. Like, I mean, talking like Michael Bay Transformers here, not like the thing that blows when you
so
lose
they don't
power.
like fold it out.
Yeah, like it folds up and goes inside there.
No, it's
You know, is what they say, because you do. They show the picture of that, like, how'd they get this out of that? You know, because it's bigger than the
and
the
I'm sure.
entrance,
I'm
but-
sure it wasn't inside the lem. I'm sure it was probably on the outside of the lem.
No, they show the doorway it supposedly came out of.
But it wasn't sitting inside the actual like cockpit that they were in the lem. I'm sure there was a
No,
compartment
they
that
they
put
show
it
the
in.
door that it like drives out of.
Yeah, that's what
and
I'm
they say
saying.
it's bigger than it, but NASA says no, it was, you know, it folds up in essence and then comes out of there. And it probably does. You know, that's fine. But that is another contention of the conspiracy theorists, is that how'd they get that up there?
Wasn't that movie a few years ago too, where they where it's like that lost footage too, and the astronauts that go up there end up getting like some like alien species ends up like in like getting into their body or something.
I'm not sure.
You ever see?
Is that how we became reptilians, like David Icke
I
says?
don't know about that. But no, there's like some with the rocks too. Like the rocks were alive and like attacking them, and
Could be. You know, I don't know. I just wonder why we don't go back. I wonder why. I wonder a lot about it.
one thing that I ask, and I'm gonna leave it at this for me tonight.
Okay.
If it was a conspiracy, if it was a giant hoax, then why open yourself up to having people scrutinize you 5 more times? And what I mean by that is, if it was in fact a hoax and it was filmed on a movie set,
Mhm.
then why just say, you know what, we went once, we don't need to go again? Why do you have to do the same thing again 5 more times after the original?
A great point, and I don't know why. And also, before we throw it over to Ed, I'll even add one more on there. Why have the Apollo 13 disaster?
Yeah.
Why have that screw up? You know, I mean, if you're faking it, why fake a screw up? You know, why not say, no, we go to the moon now, it's awesome, we're really good at it?
I think it depends on what it was they were doing the hoax for? If you're going to come up with this big elaborate hoax, why would you do it just once? Now, also, why would you stop after you've been there a few times? But if you are trying to distract people or push forward a narrative, it's probably better to go more than once to make it a little more convincing. And it maybe it's possible that they saw, hey, ratings for this are kind of dipping down after we've been there a few times. This isn't working for the same thing we're doing. Maybe we should launch some bombs.
You see,
over there.
I could see that if it was maybe like one more time or 3 times, but they ended up going 7 times in total. I don't know. To me, it just seems like, why would you want to open yourself up to that? To the conspiracies that are surrounding it by continuing to do this.
Well, you got to remember, back in the late 60s, early 70s, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have the ability for us to scrutinize things today far exceeds our ability back then.
For certain.
Yeah, sure, but why even waste? To me, it just seems like a huge waste of time to continue to push that narrative that we were going to the moon and to produce these movies and get all these people on board, to continue to get all these people on board that you were faking it. It just seems like a big waste of time.
Well, it's not as if every single person in NASA is in on it. You actually don't need that many people to be in on it to push this through. There's plenty of people, plenty of pencil pushers there who probably are completely thinking what they're doing is contributing in some way.
And Adam, I agree with what you're saying with this, and it actually, to me anyway, goes along to my former point. And that's that, yeah, you went 7 times, and I can see taking a break in 1972. I get it. Okay, yeah, you know what? There isn't a whole lot more we can do here. We went a bunch of times. We got some cool stuff. But at that point, shouldn't they be saying in 1985 by then, like, hey, now we can go easier, we can go cheaper, we can get more stuff, we can spend more time? That would only make sense. When they sent Columbus in 1492, it was really expensive. It was super dangerous. But they, thought, okay, well, so we're not going to do this all the time. But then, later in the a couple decades later, it became, hey, you know what? We got maps. We can route this. We can do this a little cheaper. We can send more people.
Yeah,
we can send people to stay.
You're still on Earth, though. You're not leaving the Earth to go.
You're on Earth in 1492 with boats.
You know how many people?
How technology moves exponentially.
I understand.
Think about what technology has done since you've been alive on this planet.
But you didn't have to worry about air or radiation belts or anything like that.
Well, they had that mostly figured out in 1969. It's 2017. It should be very easy. You did have to worry about that stuff actually in 1492. What if you fall off the boat? You're going to starve to death. It took you a hell of a lot longer to get from London to New York then, and quite frankly, it's probably a hell of a lot more dangerous than it is going to the moon now.
I'd like to point out that the official story doesn't really answer your question. Like, they just all of a sudden stopped in 72 without really giving good reasons, hence what we're talking about with it. So
without wrapping everything up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, why does that make sense? But them not pushing this maybe as a distraction for Vietnam or something else. Why does that not make sense? I guess.
Or why wouldn't they say, hey, listen, we're the United States of America. We did it first. We're the best. We did it 7 times before anybody else did it once. But we're kind of done. Is it 6? Yeah. Okay. We did it 6 times before anyone else did it once. What is 7th? Is the 7 number coming from the Apollo 13 thing?
Yeah.
I guess they saw the moon but didn't really land on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
I
it's
guess
6.
we did it 7 times.
But either way, it doesn't, the old Tom Hanks scene in the movie. I do love that movie. I love Apollo 13 the movie, but the Tom Hanks scene where he just kind of like take a look, guys, that's as close as we're ever gonna get. And they just barely graze over it.
He pees himself in that movie, right?
No. There's a scene of him peeing in the
Okay. So
yeah.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
and then dumping it, and then
Yeah.
they can't do waste dumps anymore because it throws off their cores.
Right. Yeah, because Tom Hanks always has to pee in his movies. It's very important. It's probably an Illuminati, symbol that we haven't quite uncovered yet. But, but why wouldn't they be saying like, okay, we did it. It's cool. We're done spending our treasure and risking our best and brightest for this endeavor as Americans. But okay, come on, China, it's your turn. Come on, Russia, it's your turn. We'll give you the info.
And if that's the case, why wouldn't
It's
they
an
give
email
or
away.
sell the technology involved, which then would allow others to do it?
Right, like just say, hey, Russia, it's time. You guys said you wanted to go before.
Can't they just be like, oh well, we saw that there is nothing there from your expeditions, and we don't want to.
But then if that's the case, then they're lying about a whole bunch of other stuff, because we know that. If we believe them, we know that it was not a waste of time. They got a bunch of great stuff. And if Russia has their own brilliant scientists, and China has their own brilliant scientists, and Japan has their own brilliant scientists, and France and England and Australia, then they would want to be able to go there and say, what did these dumb Americans miss? What did, these Americans got all this stuff in the late 60s and early 70s. What can we as Chinese get in 2017? But, I guess that's my point. So real quick, we'll try to wrap this up here. We could go on and on, but one more quick point, maybe two. One more quick point for sure. Two, fine, 2 points. Okay. There's all these photos that seem to have the exact same background. That many conspiracy theorists say this is obviously a set, from the different moon landing missions. And they are definitely, absolutely, positively the exact same thing, that they're standing behind, but it seems to be from landing in different places, from seeing different things. That is legit. But NASA says that, well, I guess in essence, it'd be like if you take a picture of a huge spot, focus on it out in the Grand Canyon, and then move 3 miles to your west and take a picture, it's pretty much going to kind of look the same.
Because there's so many, there's a lot of craters and a lot of similar looking ones and sizes that you essentially could be 2 different spots of the moon and look like you have very similar terrain. Sort of thing.
But some of these pictures are certainly the exact same thing. The exact same terrain. But they say, yes, it is the same thing. And yes, we were 2 miles away. But when you take a picture of it from that distance, it's going to pretty much look like that regardless. I don't know what the science is behind that. I really don't. The other one is, if you put the moon things, and I've seen this done, if you put the moon pictures, the moon videos, if you double the speed, if you just put it in speed, it looks like they're walking normal. If you look at the video of them driving the rover around and double the speed of it, it looks like they're just driving along a little thing. If you look at them moonwalking, look at them jumping, look at them walking, look at them running, and then put it in double speed, it really does just look like a regular person running. And that's what a lot of people say, is that this is really easily duplicated by having the speed. Cutting it in half, not having the capability. But that's I guess my thing. So we'll wrap it up kind of for there, but Ed, what do you think of our 3 initial theories? Do you buy into one more than the other? We never went. We are far more advanced than they're telling us, or flat Earth?
We never went.
Flat Earth. Damn it.
No,
Hoping you go
sorry,
with flat Earth.
Maybe I'm biting on some dumb stuff, but not that one.
Adam, do you buy into any of those? If you truly disagree with all of them, that's fine. But I'm just trying to, I am asking the question. You have the right to refuse the answers, but I am giving you that multiple choice. We never went. we're far more advanced, and they were lying about it. Flat Earth.
I think out of all of those, I think the most plausible one for me is we're more advanced. So I think out of any of those, that's probably the one that I would go with. But we did go.
I tend to agree with you too. I don't tend to think that the moon landing was fake. I do believe that if we weren't more, I believe that we're either far more advanced then or around that time, and that they're lying to us. If that isn't true, they're certainly lying to us about something now and have been for 40 years. What it is, I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I will say that I know, or I'm very certain that they're lying to us about something, and I'm using that second that that we had the more advanced. I'm using that as a crutch to explain away, or potentially explain away, why they're lying to us. It could be a different reason they're lying to us, but I definitely think they're lying to us.
Could you maybe think they used the Independence Day thing there, where they got some advice from some alien technology that they
Absolutely. I absolutely
got from Roswell? Or
No, I certainly agree with that.
Area
I
51?
absolutely positively
Like,
agree with
Ed's
that.
gonna be like, "That's absurd."
No, I do believe that. I do think that there's a reason that they're not going back. Something that they're not telling us, because the BS reasons they give us for not going, I don't buy them. I just don't buy them. So again, I go back to Mark Twain. It's either insane ignorance or blatant lying. But I think that's about it. If you guys have anything else real quick you want to throw in there, go for it. But I think that wraps up this episode of Deep Issues here on the XCast on the EmpireMedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hold on.
But
what are you're jumping
oh my
along
gosh,
here.
I almost forgot.
You're gonna piss off Pumpkin.
Oh my
which is-
god! Oh my god! I can't. Oh, if I piss off Pumpkin, I'm in so much trouble. You're right, Adam. We need to pick our next Deep Issues episode.
That's my favorite part.
This is the best part. So Adam is now shaking up Pumpkin. I shook up Pumpkin mentally but now Adam is shaking up Pumpkin, and Ed will choose the next Deep Issues cast. He is now handing the piece of paper to Adam, who will read our next Deep Issues cast, which will be the second Tuesday of May.
You guys ready?
We are ready.
This is an exciting part of the show.
This is the best part of the show.
The next Deep Issues cast will be. I hope I took Tesla out of there. Nazi occult.
Ooh, that could be fun. Nazi occults. There's a couple of different things we can branch out with that too, but definitely that'll tie us back into the Illuminati and the Freemasons, I'm sure. And Crowley, for sure, yes.
Will that bring us back to aliens too?
It could bring us back to aliens, could touch us on the Illuminati and Freemasons, and definitely Aleister Crowley, like I just said. This will be a fun one. Don't miss it. But before that, you have a couple other shows to not miss, because we'll be back next week, same time, around 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on the EmpireMedia.com, where we will have our regular show. We got a special, maybe religion-esque episode planned for next week in honor of Easter. And then we got some really cool guests lined up that I met at the Midwest Gaming Classic this last weekend. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.